How many of you here are caregivers? Please raise your hand. Okay, I see a few people. I must just begin with this anecdote. A very close friend of mine is a nurse practitioner, and she had a patient, a 70-year-old woman who had recently been advised by her doctor not to drive. At a visit, my friend asked her, "How did you get here today?" And she said, "Oh, Jerry brought me. I'm renting a room at his house." Impressed with that level of support, my friend approached Jerry afterward and said, "It is incredible that you're helping out. Can I have your contact information to store on file as the caregiver?" And Jerry quickly waved it off and said, "Oh no, I'm not the caregiver. I'm just a landlord." And my friend is thinking to herself, what landlord would do this? Now, when I say the word caregiver, most people tend to think of doctors, nurses, healthcare providers wearing scrubs, administering medicine, very Grey's Anatomy. It is a noble characteristic, one that we associate with expertise and compassion. But caregiving is happening all around us, quietly, often unnoticed. Healthcare institutions are merely points of need. Our home is a real point of care. At its core, a caregiver is someone who helps others take care of themselves. This is a role that is played most often by family and friends and neighbors. Caregiving is happening most often not at hospitals or medical facilities, but at our homes, at kitchen tables, on long phone calls, and during quick visits. It is woven into the fabric of our relationships and daily interactions. To put this into perspective, Canada's General Social Survey of 2018 showed that caregivers perform about $97 billion of care work in a year. $97 billion. For every 1 hour of care that is provided by the healthcare system, caregivers provide 3. What this means is that if every caregiver in Canada took a week off, the healthcare system would crumble before noon of the first day. You'd think that with such an enormous contribution, the role of the caregiver would be highly recognized. But let's look at the reality. A landmark report in 2018 by the Change Foundation showed that only 2 of 5 caregivers actually recognize that they are playing that crucial role. In fact, 30% of the people who provide care to others do not realize that they are caregivers until the whole role is explained to them. And what's more striking and concerning is that 25% people do not see themselves as caregivers even after the explanation. This exposes a fundamental issue. Most of us, arguably all of us, are caregivers, yet we fail to recognize the crucial and critical role that we play in the lives of those that we care for. Let's unpack that. Since childhood, we are taught to be independent, to be self-sufficient. But radical autonomy is a myth and a trap. Our lives are deeply interwoven. We lean on each other in different ways to different degrees. Think about any relationship in your lives. Each of those exists in a delicate balance or an equilibrium, like a seesaw in a playground, or you might know it as a teeter-totter. Now picture that seesaw in motion. There will be days when you're stressed or overwhelmed or facing a health challenge. Life is getting heavy for you. You find yourself lifted up, feet high up in the air, struggling to find balance. Who's at the other end, holding the fort down, keeping you steady, supporting you, keeping you from tipping over? It is the other person, and in that moment, they have become your caregiver. And this dynamic is not fixed. The seesaw shifts. There will be days when they find themselves lifted up and you find yourself at the bottom, becoming their caregiver. The seesaw always shifts. It is a constant balancing act of giving and receiving care. In that case, caregiving is not an extraordinary act reserved for the heroes. It is the natural rhythm of our relationships. It is an unspoken agreement of care. And it is in this balance that we realize none of us are truly independent. We are all caregivers and receivers. So, what exactly does it mean to be a caregiver? Most of us think of caregiving as primarily physical or medical support, helping someone bathe or dress or move around. And yes, that is a vital part of caregiving, but also what is just most visible, the tip of the iceberg. This role is far more expansive than that. Caregiving is emotional support, being there to listen, to comfort, to provide companionship, even being in the audience when they are doing a TEDx talk for the first time. It is mental support, to provide advice, to help make sense of difficult situations, and clutching their hand in the doctor's waiting room. It is being an advocate, sitting in that medical appointment with them, asking questions, making sure their voice is heard. It is being social support, planning an outing, or being a friendly face in a crowded room. Sometimes it involves financial and legal matters, coordinating services, and navigating the complexities of their health. But quite often, being a caregiver just means being there to share a laugh, a meal, a movie, or a walk in the park. Now, make no mistake, being a caregiver is anything but a walk in the park. It is many roles wrapped into one. Think of a caregiver as a nurse, a chauffeur, a counselor, a personal assistant, a financial advisor, an advocate, and sometimes all of those at once. It is a symphony of support. It is this multifaceted nature of the role that makes it so incredibly valuable, yet so difficult to recognize. With that said, I'm going to ask you again, if you are a caregiver, please raise your hand. I'm very glad to see a lot more people. Let's build on that. Why is it so difficult for many caregivers to self-identify as such? One of the most significant reasons is the gradual nature of how this role evolves. Think about it. When you become a parent, the birth of a child marks a clear and ceremonious transition into that new role. But being a caregiver begins small, typically, picking up groceries, giving a ride to an appointment, or running errands. And these small acts of care blend seamlessly into everyday life. But these responsibilities can accumulate over time. Suddenly, you find yourself not just picking up their prescription, but also managing the entire medication schedule. The proverbial seesaw tilts very gradually, one small act of care at a time. Because this evolution is so slow and so incremental, it is hard to pinpoint the exact moment when you became a caregiver. To add on to it, there is the traditional expectation of familial relationships. Society teaches us that it is natural, even expected, to care for your family and friends, especially from women who are regarded as the natural nurturers. Now, due to this sense of obligation, caregiving is often concealed under the disguise of duty. You may just see yourself as a good daughter, or a dutiful son, or a loving spouse. On the other hand, men downplay or deny their caregiving role because it conflicts with the traditional views of masculinity. Now, if you're starting to see these patterns in your relationships, but are still on the fence, hesitant to call yourself a caregiver, it is completely natural. It is intimidating. It means coming to terms with the fact that you have a role that requires significant responsibility, emotional labor, and even potential sacrifices. It means confronting the reality that your loved one may have a condition that will worsen over time. The seesaw feels permanently stuck in one direction. The seesaw that used to be fun feels like work now, with you constantly putting in effort to holding it steady. And that is a very valid sentiment to have. You worry that acknowledging yourself as a caregiver will lock you into that identity forever, and it will overshadow the role of a son or a spouse that you so cherish. And all of that is valid. But let me tell you why self-identifying as a caregiver is so important and so critical. It changes your views on caregiving, not just as an obligation, but as a valuable skill set. Think about it. Caregivers develop a wide range of abilities: problem solving, emotional intelligence, time management, and sometimes even crisis intervention. It is almost like being on a new job without a training manual, and you are crushing it. It is such a challenging role, but deeply fulfilling once you realize what and how much you're doing. Self-identification also enhances decision-making. With my good son hat on, I would feel conflicted, guilty, and torn between the societal demands of providing immediate comfort and the long-term demands of care and safety. Putting my caregiving glasses on brings clarity. For example, do I just respect mom's wishes to not take a medication because it makes her bloated, or do I work with her to adjust her diet so that she can manage the side effect better? As a caregiver, you make better informed and well-reasoned decisions, both for yourself and the person that you care for. Additionally, self-identifying as a caregiver is a gateway. It opens your eyes up to an array of community resources available right now: support groups, training programs, respite, counseling, all of which are designed to help you manage the challenges of caregiving a lot better. Once you step into that role more consciously, you feel more in control of your situation. You're mindfully nurturing the skills that are required to fulfill your responsibilities. And it opens you up to a community of people with similar lived experiences, other caregivers. I promise you, if it gets too much, if you're finding it difficult to hold the fort down all by yourself, if you need support as a caregiver, just reach out and you will be amazed by the support you will find from fellow caregivers. Together, we will balance this whole load. And most importantly, identifying as a caregiver is the key to self-care. Caring for others is exhausting, and admitting that is not selfish, it is necessary. Once you acknowledge yourself as a caregiver, you start feeling more supported, you start feeling more empowered, and you can advocate better for yourself and your loved one. You can objectively provide better care. You stand up for yourself, you start to set boundaries, and you learn to ask for help. So, take a close look at your relationships. Whose circle of care are you in, and who is in your circle of care? Start a conversation today about the care that you give and that you receive. Because this is not just a label. A caregiver is a part of who you are, and this recognition is instrumental to driving systemic change, to advocate for caregiver rights, and to challenge the outdated norms that undervalue and minimize the contributions of all the Jerrys in the world. Realizing that you are a caregiver is the beginning of better care both for yourself and those you love. The intimidating part is it has to begin with us. The exciting part is it begins with us. Thank you.